Hello and welcome. In this video, I want to show you how to start working with the first step of working with the database first method in the entity framework, and it is creating the database in the SQL server. So let's dig in. First, we talked about the main steps for working with the database first method in the entity framework. As I mentioned, the first step for working with the entity framework is creating the database. In the next step, we need to use the NuGet, then generate the DB context and models, and finally controllers and the views. So I'm over here in the first step. To do that, we can create any type of the databases for any job or any situation. But personally, I prefer to use the database for the SQL. So I have the SQL, then I have the students table inside it, and inside the students I have the ID, the first name, the last name, age, rec date, and the grade. So let's start creating the student table inside the SQL database. It's really simple and straightforward, and I assume you are familiar with the SQL server. If you don't know anything about the SQL server, don't hesitate to watch the quick review of the SQL server in this course. So come over here and open up the SQL server management studio. The version of the SQL server is not important matter. So you can work with the different versions of the SQL server, for instance 2014, 2016, or newer versions. This is the SQL server 2019. Come over here, click on this, and database engine. In this window, we need to select the server. You can see the server over here. Then the authentication. You know what? To prevent any unexpected errors in the future while connecting to this server, I strongly recommend you to use the SQL server authentication. And this is the server admin or SQL server admin username, SA, then the password. You can write the password and connect. As I mentioned, don't use the Windows authentication to prevent any unexpected errors. So come over here and connect. Now I have the databases inside it. I have the current database and all the system databases. Right click over here and new database. At the first step, let's add the new database. Name it for instance SQL. So this is, and also I have all the information over here, the SQL, the main database file, and also the log file, and all the information over here. You can get access to that. So this is the location for saving the database file, and I can easily copy that and click OK. So let's come over here and come to this. I want to get inside the database folder. It's not necessary, but you can do it. So this is the database folder, and if I take a look, I have the sql.mdf main database file and also log database file, the log. Both of these are required for working with the database, but the main one is this, the MDF. So let's minimize this. So my database is added over here, and if you can see it, select the databases and refresh. So the SQLs, inside it I have the tables, and inside the table right click on it, new, and the table. I want to add the new table. So if I take a look over here in my diagram, I have the student table inside it, and it has the ID for the first column. It is integer, and also the primary key. PK means primary key. Then the first name, last name up to the end. So let's come to this, and at the first add the ID, or you can use the uppercase, no worries. And its data type is int because it is up to 2 billion. It means I can add up to 2 billion records. So let's select this, right click on it, and set it as the primary key or PK. And then get inside the properties over here, and if I take a look, I want to assign this column as the identity. So it is unique and auto-generated. And is identity? Yes. Identity increment and identity set. Identity set is the first number. Then I have the identity increment, and it is the increment number or the value or the step. So let's set the first number as the 1, or you can change it and also increment to 1. Now let's save everything and name it the students or anything you want. Click OK. Great. So let's see the next column. It is the first name and the last name, and the data type is the invalid up to 50. Why I'm using the invalid? Because I want to save the Unicode characters inside it. So I'll come over here, come to this, and the first name. Let's write the uppercase F first and uppercase N. So this is the first name. And also you can use the underscore between the first and the name. But I strongly recommend you, if you want to work with the entity framework to prevent any unexpected errors, don't use the underscores in naming of the columns. This is based on my more than 2 decades of experiences in the programming world. So let's set it as the varchar, and this is the varchar up to 50 characters. It's enough, I think. And I can easily select this and paste over here. The next one is the last name. So the last and the name like this, the varchar 50. And in the next step, I have the age. Its type is the small int, the reg date or registration date, and the grade. So let's come over here, and the next one is the age. This is the age, and I can select this, and this is the really a small number, so we can say the small int. And if I take a look, the small int is enough for the age. Now let's go over here, and the next one is reg date. And as I mentioned, use the uppercase here and here, and don't use the underscore to prevent any unexpected errors. And this is the reg date, and the type is date, of course. You can see the date over here. I don't need to add the time, so you can select the date. Also, if you need to add the time, you can select the date time or date time 7 up to the end. Let's select the date. And the last one I think is the grade. So this is the grade, and its data type is a small int, and this is the grade. So it is a small int, and I can write a small here and select the small int. So all of these columns can be null. So I checked all of the checkboxes, and the first one is unchecked. Why? Because this is the primary key, and as you know, the primary key can't be null. So the allow null is unchecked. Also, don't forget to select the first column, the ID, and set the identity column. As I mentioned, this is, and the identity increment and the set. So let's save everything, and let's check all of this one by one, the int and varchar up to the end. And if I close, great. Now I haven't any table, so let's refresh, and if I take a look, my table is added over here. This is the owner or the creator indeed, and the DBO is the owner of the table. And if I expand that, I have the columns inside it. I have the ID up to the end. Right click on the students and select top records. In the different versions of the SQL server, you can see different matter for this one, but the only thing you need is selecting records. The number is not important. Matter, as you know, I haven't anything inside my table because it is the new one, and after running this select query, the data is loaded over here, but currently it is empty. Congratulations, everything is done. Now I have created successfully my table, but before I can start working with the table and the database inside the entity framework in my website, it's really great idea to add some sample data, but it's time consuming, so let's talk about it in the upcoming tutorial. Thanks for your time. Welcome back. In this video, I want to show you how to add easily the sample data to the table. Now let's begin. First, we talked about how to create this great and amazing database and also the table. But before working with the table and before I start using it inside our website, it's a really great idea to add some sample data inside it. Then we can start working with it. It's really simple and straightforward. Just come over here and right click on the student and edit. So edit. After a couple of seconds, everything is ready for me. So the ID is auto increment, and as you see over here, this column is auto increment, the primary key and also the integer. So let's leave it and come to the next. The next one is the Alex, and the mayor age is, for instance, 15. The reg date, this is the registration date. But before working with it, we need to identify the correct format of the date. Currently, I haven't any idea about it. So let's try something like this: 2022, add the slash, then the month, and the month is 12, for instance. then the day, and 23. So if you click on the next record, so it's saved without any problem. My slashes are replaced with the dashes. So it's not important matter the slash or the dash. It means the first part is the year, the next one is the month, and the last one is the day. And if you get inside the first record and write something else, for instance, this is the 24, and consider this part as the month and write something like the 05 and click over here. So I got this error, invalid value, row 1, column 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, row 1. And the .NET Framework data type, date time, is not recognized as the valid date time. So this is not the valid date time. It means we need to change the format in this example, change the position of the month and the day. So this is a really tricky note about dealing with the date time. Press the escape to undo my changes and the create for instance the 8 or 9. Now come to the next one and I can write the Sarah, then the Jackson, and also the age up to 14 or 16 and the day. So let's copy this and paste over here for faster result, and the correct date is for instance 11 and 20, and the grade is 9, or we can say the 10. You are completely free. So this is the result. Now I can add as many as number of the records that I want. It's time consuming, so stay with me. Welcome back. I have successfully added up to 5 records. So it's really simple and it's straightforward. And as I mentioned previously, the first ID is the number 1, and it considered as the auto-generated number. And as I mentioned, I can come to the design of the table, and if I select this, I have the identity column here, the identity and identity set. You can identify this number by this one. For instance, I can change it to 10 or other matters. For instance, I can use number 10 or 100 or any other number that I want. Now let's select this and close that because we haven't any changes inside it. So I can get inside the students and select top records, and as you see I have the records that are loaded over here. I intentionally added some null values inside the records. For instance, null for the last name, null for the correct date, and also null for the grade, because I want to use the different options and the different values for better and deeper understanding of what's going on inside my code in the future after designing and using all of this inside the ASP.NET Core website. Okay, I enjoyed a lot. Now my database is ready for me with a lot of sample data inside it. So what about the next step? In the next step, I need to create the new project in the Visual Studio 2022, then add and install the NuGet packages inside it. It's time consuming, so let's talk about it in the upcoming tutorial. Thanks for your time.